Hi guys, I'm Shmee and welcome back to the channel where today you join me to take a first look at the new Aston Martin Vantage, a car that has been long awaited, one that I am very excited to see as well. And we're going to head inside, have a walk around it and see the new car up close and personal in detail. So we're here at the presentation, let's head in and take a look. The mood gets started here, heading through to where the car is going to be unveiled. Wow, here it is, our first look at the new Aston Martin Vantage, immediately distinct as a new model, a completely different look from the Grand Tourer that is the DB11, but instantly signs also of other cars from the range. The low front grille that you can see, reminiscent of the DB10 and of the Vulcan, the hypercar for the track. We're going to go around this in full detail in a moment, but just a first walk around. Look at the back, the way the brake light goes around across the little raised up spoiler part on the deck lid, and the general aggression and looks, it's instantly distinguishable as its own car. Wow. That is a good looking machine. So let's get some information and go over this in detail. I've had a full introduction now to the car, but it's time to show you guys around and go over some of the details of a hugely significant car, Aston Martin's new sports car, the Vantage. And of course, for me especially, I have the Vantage GT8 of the previous generation. My first ever proper car that I owned and featured on my YouTube channel was my previous Vantage Roadster, the 4.7 litre generation of the previous car. So this one very much moves this game forward. So let's take a look around it, talk a lot about it and go over many of the details that have gone into it, both in terms of how it looks, the aerodynamics, the visual side of things, also under the engine and on the inside as well. And just starting around the front, like I mentioned, the most immediately distinct feature is that low front end. And in fact, this is the lowest front edge, leading edge of an Aston Martin that has been made to date. And you can see the way you've got the large grille of the front mesh that goes right down towards the floor, but still maintains the traditional looks and styling around the S shapes either side of it, but very instantly recognizable as a different car to the DB11. And that's one of the big things from the past. Andy Palmer, the CEO who shot one of my GT8 videos with me, actually said that it had to pass the test of going past his mum and being recognizable as a different car. So coming around to the side, you now have no longer the side strakes that we're familiar with, but these new gills that also allow airflow through. But there are a couple of design touches you can have with those. Coming towards the rear, it's a very sporty back end. I particularly like the shapes and what you're looking at around here, especially with this 5-piece brake light, the brake in the center, but the lights that go all the way along the top edge, mimicking almost the top of this diffuser line across the bottom. But it's very aggressive down here. You've got these laser cut pieces here on the metal, but diffuser strakes towards the side for different airflow underneath. And if we come and catch a quick glance at the interior, amusing fact, the only parts that carry over from previous generation are two of them. One, the door handle on the left, and the other, the door handle on the right. So that's the only part that's been reused, but still the swan style doors that open outwards and upwards to reveal a completely new look to the interior. There are some parts that are similar-ish from DB11, but it's very much its own thing. And we'll take a full look around all of this in a moment. This colour is called Copper Tan, the launch specification for the car, but all the controls around the centre with digital displays and with the Sports Plus package for the steering wheel squared off and the seats. So we'll go into that in more detail in a moment. Just close the car back down and start thinking more about the design, because it's got very high sides coming up to this single line, muscular line that runs the full length of the car over the haunches towards the back. Obviously around here, this S shape again for the wing, or not the wing I should say, the spoiler ducktail on the back of the boot lid, 350 litres of luggage space back there too. From an engine point of view, this is obviously very important. In the front is a 4-litre biturbo V8, 510 horsepower, 685 newton meters of torque, 0 to 62 miles per hour, 100 kilometers an hour, will take you 3.6 seconds, and it will go on to 195 miles an hour, 314 kilometers an hour. And we'll have a look at that in a second, because the engine is mounted quite far back behind the front axle for near on perfect 50-50 weight distribution. Obviously very important in a fun sports car. And size-wise, it's actually quite small. It's not as large as I think some of the alternatives, some of the rival cars, and it feels that way when you're standing next to it looking at the car. It's quite a tidy package. Let's head to take a look at the power plant. So to open up the bonnet and the passenger footwell deep down here, you can open it up and head around to take a look. Now in the DB11, the bonnet opened forwards. In the Vantage, it opens in the more traditional sense. So there is a clasp just under here. You can release that and open it up, where we're greeted with that twin turbocharged V8. Now, sister unit, similar to in the AMG GTS, but with a new ECU, new tuning to give it a little bit more torque, up to 685 newton meters, but still the 510 PS, the metric horsepower, 503 brake horsepower. You can have as an option a number of carbon fiber parts for the covers over the top, but still with the final inspection plaques sitting on there, which is very, very nice. And actually quite a large amount of the engine you can actually see. It sits very, very low. The total centre of gravity of the car is actually only, well, under 50 centimetres from the ground, which is exceptionally low. Well, really central to this is the mating of that with the 8-speed ZF gearbox that's set up for a sporty and enjoyable drive. But this gives us, I guess, a sense of how some of the airflow works through the car. So you can imagine air coming in through the front, comes in through here, is allowed to come up through here into this section, through that opening, which goes down towards cooling the turbochargers. There is also airflow that allows air out from the high pressure areas under here. And if we come and take a quick glimpse underneath the car, there is actually airflow that can release out through here as well. And there are also some turning vanes underneath to direct airflow around. So there's a lot going on that front of it. Come back round, just going to close the bonnet down for a moment. It's a very large piece, aluminium. The body is a mix of aluminium, composites, some steel sections towards the rear, but we'll get round to that in a second. But I'm going to come into the headlights, because I think that's a very nice detail, especially the way they're illuminated right now with all of those parts, but also the interior details and the finishing that you have inside that. Just quite nice, and it's distinctive. You know, the eyes of a car are a major, major part of what gives it its character. These are very, very wide, very low, but they are unlike anything else. And even down here, with these shapes, these S shapes we talked about earlier, the body is sucked in, pulled in to really emphasize and exaggerate those. Continue round. Talk about the wheels. 20-inch wheels all round, 2 different design options. These ones finish with the diamond turned and black dual tone, wrapped in the new Pirelli P0s. And the car has an E-diff with torque vectoring by braking to, again, make it even more enjoyable to drive. But if we come back round here, we can talk a bit more about the aerodynamics underneath the car. So the clean air, the low pressure air, is allowed straight through for maximum performance. The high pressure air, so the swelling from the wheel wells, comes out through the diffuser and through those vanes and is kept out to the side so that it doesn't intervene with play and cause problems. But let's open up the rear hatch. So I'll come around to the driver's side, open the door so you can have a quick glimpse in here. The button on this side, press and hold and it releases. We can come around to the back. So the traditional 3-door hatch style, where it actually has what's called the infinity gap underneath it here, so you can barely tell where the edge line of the hatch and the bumper actually is. So we open this up, which has Aston Martin's now having the lettering on the rear of the car. Lift this up, and you can see in here 350 litres of space, so enough for plenty of luggage, as you can see on the demonstration. 2 sets of golf clubs. You can fold down this privacy shelf, so fit even more through there should you want. Actually, you can probably use loads of the space back here, but also keep that up if you don't want to be able to see into the boot. When the hatch is folded down, you can remove this as well. And it also has the umbrella, which is one part shared with other Aston Martins, having the same umbrella. Very nice umbrella it is too. Nice to have that mounted and easily accessible next to this leather pull strap here. So materials, finish, fit is all very important. Everything you look at is quite nice to touch and look at and feel, and that is a pretty decent space, to be honest. I mean, these are fairly sizable bags, 4 of them in the back, and the fitted luggage. So I'll put this back down, close the hatch, and you can see what I mean about that gap across the back that's quite hard to distinguish. And you've got the 5 pieces of the brake light stretching, well, the full width of the car and mimicking what you see down below. Now, the exhaust tailpipes, one on each side. See, behind this laser cut metal rather than just having a mesh, and that's something familiar from DB10 type of example of material. And actually you can have that style on the side gills as well if you want it to match like that. And of course you've got cameras. You can have a 360-degree camera system for the car. It looks quite cool from back here with both of the doors open slightly upwards. But let's head to take a look now at the interior and step in. But actually, before I do so, one other thing, just talking a little bit about the panels. The steel panels I mentioned, basically the rear 3/4, because it's one part all the way from the A-pillar towards the back, which gives them the option of making these extra shapes. And really that line down the side, if I come around and close the passenger door, and by the way, you can have the roof painted black like this example, or you could have a carbon fibre roof as an option. You can see the sharpness of that line going the full length, a nice distinguisher down the side. Well, let's come back and step in and take a look at the inside in more detail, where you're greeted by the triple digital displays that we're slightly familiar with DB11, but housed in a new cluster, a new environment around them. Then we have the Sports Plus optional steering wheel, which has the slightly squared off shape, which is really quite nice. There'll be also slightly, I think, elongated paddle shifts from this version of the car, but looking around, a lot of the electronics come from Daimler, from Mercedes, akin to the engine, but tuned, customised, and the like for the Vantage. Now, I do think that my instinct says there are a lot of buttons here, perhaps slightly overwhelming, but let me take you a little bit through them. Obviously, park, reverse, neutral, and drive, and when you press your foot on the brake, that lights up to start the engine, which is really quite nice. Above that, you have all your climate control settings, all these metal dials that are very nice feeling. Your button for the heated seats, working as you would expect, and then further down your controls to go through the different modes of the navigation system and your selector, as we're familiar with from various Mercedes cars. I think it's optional to have the touchpad here. Some might not like it, but it does give you the ability to write and control some things and features and the like, depending what you want. Behind that, you've got room for some cup holders. You've got an armrest, which I think might be an option as well, but there's, I guess, a decent amount of storage in there. Cigarette socket at the back and some USB ports at the front of it as well. In traditional Aston style, you have seat controls down here on the central tunnel, which I still think is very nice. I like that pad against the carbon fibre optional trim here. The knee pad protects you from bashing your knee, but generally it's quite a futuristic design. The copper tan with the red stitch and the red embroideries is quite nice as well. And we've got plenty of room for luggage options back here, actually. A pretty good Grand Tourer, but a sporty Grand Tourer, because the DB11 obviously sits above in that aspect, and the door handles are quite nice pieces as well. Everything you touch is pretty decently, solidly feeling well made. And then on the steering wheel, sport button, suspension, adaptive dampers. Of course, it can be comfortable or sporty depending how you want the car to be set up. And then if I pull the door closed, this is one of the other things that's special about this car, is the amount of space. So it's hard to necessarily show you, but there's basically, it's sculpted so that everything is dug out, so you have as much arm room as possible, and availability to move your arms around if you're driving in a dynamic and sporty manner. It has, I guess, an interesting dashboard that folds all the way around. You can't have any desperately light coloured materials on the dash for reflective reasons, but this car with the Alcantara headliner, oh, this is quite nice, the slider for the mirror, where you're greeted by blue or a camera, that feels very nice and good quality on there. And I suppose everything is controlled through the centre and then works in here in a nice way. So you sit lower than DB11, pull the door open, It swings out on its own accord. You get the trim out here that matches with your selection for the inside of the car. And also it's an option to have the sills over the top of the carpet. So typically that would be, I think, straight carpet along the side. So this car is, didn't close the door quite properly. This car is finished in the very, very metallic red, but contrasted nicely with the gloss black accents around the lower sections, the splitter, the side skirts, the rear diffuser, the door mirrors, and also the roof. So optional parts that you could have in carbon fibre. And then it has the Forge optional wheel, which is 13 kilos lighter than the standard cast wheel as well. Here we've actually got some of the wheel options. So these are the standard cast design. You can see in the different finishes. So this is, well, painted grey. You can feel it's quite heavy. It's 13 kilos for the full set in terms of weight saving, which, well, the car's 30 kilos dry weight, but you've got 3 different finishes. The painted grey, you've got the black with diamond turned. This is the Y-spoke option, and then the regular light silver colour. And if I spin around on the other side, we've got the 3 of the forged option. So we've seen the dual tone, also the silvery finish, but also this, which is quite an interesting textured satin feel, quite unusual, I think, for a wheel design. This is the regular seat for the car, the non-Sport Plus seat set up to a VR system, which is brilliant here for looking at different specifications and having a look around the interior with the predefined configurations. And then over here, we have some of the other parts that you can have. So the carbon fibre panels for the engine bay, either the one-stage central part, or if you cover further aspects, then you've got the carbon fibre and the metal finishers for the side gills. The option to have the full build process of a car covered and documented, along with other information about Aston Martin, battery conditioner naturally, and then luggage and different parts as well, before you get to the specification wall. And I can tell you from doing this previously with my GT8 and coming along and filming this process, there are many, many options for different colours and different configurations. Oh, look at that, Diavolo red, that is beautiful. Love that colour. What would you spec? How would you spec your new Vantage if you're picking from the wall of colour? What would it be? And then all of the leathers and the stitches and different options as well. Walking back to the car, look at that profile. It really does have quite a high waistline, but you can tell it's short, but with the longest wheelbase possible, which is what makes a car very entertaining to drive. So I look forward to hearing it and seeing more of it in future. But I'm just going to show you quickly the specification of the car we're looking at, because it's one of their designer specifications. So there are 6 of these at launch of the car. And if we open up this display box, you can see how that looks. This is the molten specification. That's how it's configured in terms of options. You've got the various internal parts and materials here, the carbon fibre, leather with the red stitch, and the paint sample too, and hyper red, which is really quite wonderful. Very nice choice of colour. Close that back down for the moment. I'm also going to come round and show you the indicators and the hazards on. So just to open up the car, just because it's fun, to have another look at the interior. Let's turn on the hazard warning lights for the moment, just so you can see how those look on the exterior of the car. And these hidden door mirror indicators, you don't see those when they're turned off. They're blended into the paintwork. And then round at the front, those strakes at the side now turn from white towards amber, and then coming towards the back, it wraps around the outside of the rear light as well. It's all just quite nicely designed and integrated. I'll come back and turn those off, and you'll see what I mean about the door mirror as well. So off for the moment, and shut the door back down. You can see how those are completely hidden away, akin to the DB11, but I just think it's nice to have a look at. So, there we have it. The brand new, all new Aston Martin Vantage. A car that has been long awaited. The previous generation lasted more than a decade, and a car that no doubt is going to spawn some very exciting versions in the future as well. But wonderful to see it. Very interested to hear the feedback from you guys too. So do comment down below what you think of this new car. There we go then, a first look at the new car. This car is actually a VP, a prototype car, so not quite finished. The final niggles, anything you might have spotted, no doubt, will be ironed out when the car is ready for full release. But a big thanks to Aston Martin and to the team here for making it possible for me to come along and film this video and show you guys the new car in time for its release and its full launch. Anyway, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that at some point in the future I'll get an opportunity to take the new Vantage out for a drive and let you know what it's like out and about on the roads and maybe on the track as well. So make sure you're subscribed, click the little bell if you'd like instant notifications on all the latest videos. But that is it for this time. Thank you very much as always for watching and for being subscribed, and I'll catch up with you again very soon. Cheers!